Alrighty, let's take a look at our warm-up. Okay, very seldom do I have a warm-up for you guys, but I felt that this was an important one. Of course, Caleb ran out. Laura, okay? So, Laura, first thing we have to do, remember, is find the critical values. And the way you're going to find the critical values is to set this as an equal sign. So take out the inequality, set it equal. And now we need to solve that. So what did you do to solve this? Added 13x over and you got what?
4x squared plus 13x plus 3
equals
0.
Okay, now, do you have a GCF that you can divide through? No GCF. At this point, I would suggest one of two methods. I would either factor or quadratic formula. What did you do?
Oh, I did the quadratic formula.
Okay, if you factor it, I'll come back to you in a minute. She did the quadratic formula. What's A?
4.
What's B?
13.
What's C?
3.
So you did X equals?
Negative 13 plus or minus 13 squared minus 4 times 3 over 2 times 4.
Minus 4 times 4AC all over 2 times A. When you did the inside here, what'd you get?
121.
121 all over 8. What is the square root of 121?
11.
So you got negative 13 plus or minus 11 all over 8. Okay. So that's negative 13 plus 11 over 8 or negative 13 minus 11 over 8. What's negative 13 plus 11?
Negative 2.
And what does negative 2 over 8 reduce to?
1/4.
Negative.
Or yeah, negative 1/4.
Okay. Over here, what's negative 13 minus 11?
Negative 24.
And what does negative 24 over 8 reduce to?
Negative 3.
There's her two critical values. Are you guys okay with quadratic formula? Now, I know a lot of you chose to do this by factoring, yeah?
Yes.
If you did it by factoring, what did you do? You multiplied what? 4 times 3. And what is 4 times 3?
12.
And you ask yourself what multiplied to give you 12 and adds to give you 13. And it would be what? 12 and 1. Which one did you put first?
12.
So 4x squared plus 12x plus 1x plus 3. What'd you pull out of the first group?
4x.
When you pulled out of 4x, what was left? X plus 3. What'd you pull out of the second group? A 1. What was left? So what did this factor into? 4x plus 1 and equals 0. Now remember to solve this by factoring. You set each factor equal to 0. You guys will get better at that one. This one's super easy. When you set that one equal to 0, what do you get? On this one, what'd you have to do? Subtract 1 and then what? Divide by 4. All right, so that is great for us to show that it does not matter if you use the quadratic formula or factoring. Now, we're not done. The answer to an inequality is a what? Inequality. So these are just my critical values. So I'm going to come here. Negative 3 is smaller, so it goes to the left of negative 1/4. How do I know if I put an open or a closed circle? How do I know if I put an open or a closed circle? The original inequality. Since it was just greater than, I'm going to use what? Open. So I'm going to put open circles on those. Now, what values did you guys test? Negative 4. How about between here? Negative 1. And how about over here? 0. Now, when you test, go back into that original inequality. That original inequality said 4 times x squared plus 3 3, is that greater than negative 13 times negative 4? What'd you guys get for this left side? What was 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64 plus 3. What'd you get?
67.
Is that greater than what's negative 13 times negative 4? What'd you get there?
Yes.
Yes. I almost put no. All right, yes. So if we did this right, it should go what? Yes, no, yes. All right, then we tested negative 1. So I did 4 times negative 1 squared plus 3. Is that greater than negative 13 times negative 1? Or what did you guys get over here?
19.
Not 19.
Oh.
7, because that's positive 1 times 4 is 4 plus 3 is 7. Is that greater than 13? What did you guys get?
No.
Again, make sure you test these because if you did something wrong, it will show up here. And then this one, 4 times 0 squared plus 3, is that greater than negative 13 times 0? Well, that gives me 0 over here, 3 over here. What do you think? Yes. So, Josh, this was yes, no, yes. How do you write your answer?
X is less than or X is greater than.
It's an or. If they go apart, they're ors. How'd you guys do? Okay. Any questions on the homework? All right, pass those in. Sheet of paper out for notes. 2 days in a row of no guided notes, guys. What? I think we're missing a paper, or did you guys pass it forward? Okay, because I say I got 3 on that front row. Okay. You guys got there. Okay. And here. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. So on your homework tonight, these two are the graphing where you had to graph the parabola and shade. Is it dashed or solid? Do you shade above or below? Okay. These two are what we just did last night. 2 more of those. Okay, can you handle those?
Oh, yeah.
And then 43 is just like what we're going to do right now. So right now, here's your word problem. Do not write all this down. If you need to come back to it, you can come back and look at it. Okay? An archaeologist is roping off a rectangular region of land to dig for artifacts. The region must have a perimeter of 440 feet. So it must have a perimeter of 40 feet and an area of at least 8,000. Describe the possible lengths for the archaeological region. All right, well, let's go to the first given information. What did they tell you the first thing is? Perimeter is what? How do you find the perimeter of a rectangle? Add up both sides. You have length plus width plus length plus width. Or 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Do you guys remember that from geometry? Okay. So my perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. And that has to equal, because it says the perimeter of what? 440. So let's write that down. And then it says it has to have an area. Ooh, how do you find the area of a rectangle again? Length times width. So now I'm going to multiply the length times the width. But it needs to be at least 8,000. If it needs to be at least 8,000, it needs to be what? Greater than or equal to 8,000. So are you guys okay just setting up your 2 equations / inequalities? Does everybody feel like you could have picked those out of here?
Yeah.
All right. So now it wants us to solve this for the lengths. And this is where it gets a little tricky, and you'll see why we're doing this in a minute. Okay? To solve this for the lengths, I am going to take this equation and I'm going to solve it for W. And you're like, well, why are you solving it for W? Because I'm going to replace W so that W goes away. And then I get L, okay? So I am going to solve this for W. How do you solve this equation? I want to rewrite this equation for W. What are you guys going to do? I have to move everything that doesn't have a W first, so what do? Subtract 2L. And now this is where people write it different ways. I have some people want to put the minus 2L in the front, some not. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to write 440 minus 2L. Let me keep it like that. Doesn't matter. There's no slope-intercept form for this. And now what do? Divide every term by what? 2. So when I do, I get W equals, what's 440 divided by 2? 220 minus what? L. Does everybody see how I solve that for W? Again, I solve for W because now I'm going to come into my inequality, and everywhere I see a W, I'm going to replace it with what? 220 minus L. So I'm going to say L, and then I have 220 minus L has to be greater than or equal to 8,000. And notice now I have an inequality in terms of the length. I have an inequality in terms of the length. And this is just a quadratic inequality because watch, what do you do with this L? And when you distribute it, what do you get? 220L minus L squared is greater than or equal to 8,000. Now, just like last night, we got to find our critical values. So I'm going to move. So before I go any further, let me stop. Here is my original inequality then that I'm going to work with. And I need to find the what? In order to solve that inequality, I need to find the what? Critical values. Find the critical values. So I'm going to go ahead and move this 8,000 over and rearrange it. So I'm going to write negative L squared. I have positive 220L. And then what would you do with the 8,000? Subtract it. And that is equal to 0. Because remember, when you find the critical values, you take out the inequality and put it in equals. Did I mess anybody up on what I did there? Okay, I just rearranged the negative L squared plus 220L and subtracted the 8,000 over. Now, you could try to factor this. If you divide through by a negative 1, and then 1 multiplies to give you 8,000, and adds to give you negative 220. But my guess is you're going to say, what else could we do? Could we do quadratic formula? Yeah. What's A? What's B? What's C? Negative 8,000. So X equals opposite of B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. So take your calculator, do 200 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 8,000. And what do you guys get? Hang on, what did I do?
You did 200.
Oh, I did. Dang, snap. Snap, crackle, pop. 220, 220. So I can re-put this entry in and come over here and change that. There we go. And now what did we get? We get 16,400. So x equals negative 220 plus or minus the square root of 16,400 all over. Is that a perfect square? I don't know. Let's find out. It doesn't matter. Either way, we got to figure out what it is. So second square root of second answer. All right. It's 128 point what? Let's go to 2 decimal places. 128.06. So I have, because what I could do, let me actually show you. Since it's not a perfect square, what I would do is this. 16,400 divided by negative 2. Or x equals negative 220 minus the square root of 16,400 divided by negative 2. Now, when you do this in your calculator, let's do one. When you do it, you do the numerator, hit enter, and then divide by negative 2. If you don't, you have to get really parenthesis crazy. So do negative 220 plus the square root of 16,400, hit enter, and then divide that whole numerator by negative 2. Okay, and did you guys get 45.97? Okay. Okay, that's your first, and I changed my X. It should be L. Do the other one. Hit enter. Divided by negative 2. What did you guys get for the other critical value? 174.03. So okay. The other one is 174.03. So these are your two lengths. But those are only my critical values. Okay. So now I'm going to come on my number line and I'm going to put 45.97 and I'm going to put 174.03. Open or close circles?
Close.
Why is it closed? Greater than or equal to 8,000. So those do include those points. Now, let's decide this as a class so we all use the same numbers because we could choose a lot of numbers. Let's pick pretty numbers. What's a good number to the left?
40. 0.
Better.
0.
0. What's a good number between 45 and 174?
100.
100, maybe 50. Those are all good. And how about bigger than 174?
200.
I would do 200. Okay. Now, when you test these values, okay, when you test them, you're going to test it back into the original inequality, which was, I got to look for it. How did I have it written up here? I had 220L. 220L minus L squared is greater than or equal to 8,000. So let's see. We have 220 times 0 minus 0 squared. Is that greater than or equal to 8,000? What would that give me on the left side? 0. Is 0 greater than or equal to 8,000? No. Okay, let's do 100. We have 220 times 100 minus 100 squared. Is that greater than or equal to 8,000? Well, let's try this. I have 220 times 100 minus 100 squared. What did you guys get over there? 12,000? Okay. Is 12,000 greater than or equal to 8,000? Yes. Now try 200. So I have 220 times 200 minus 200 squared. Is that greater than or equal to 8,000? What'd you guys get when you plugged in 200? Negative 400,000?
No, 4,000.
Just 4,000?
Yeah.
Okay. I had a negative on mine, but let me know. You guys all got positive 4,000? Okay. So 4,000 is greater than or equal to 8,000. What are you going to tell me there? No. So, no, yes, no. What can you tell me about the lengths? The length must be between what? 45.97 and what? And the units were feet. So they must be, the length must be between 45.97 and 174.03. Oh. I know. These are humongo problems, aren't they? Huh? All right. Tomorrow is a late start day. Up there is your work. Who is going to be gone? Joe, was it you? I got your practice quiz. I'll get it for you. Tomorrow, practice test. Tomorrow, you're going to come in. We're going to go over the homework. We're going to do a couple warm-up problems. Nothing like this, old stuff. And then you will have the rest of class time to work on your practice test, and that is tomorrow.